They called it a miracle of modern engineering, a military aircraft that could fly like a plane and land like a helicopter. The Pentagon spent 30 years and $50 billion building it, and in 30 seconds, it killed 8 American Special Operations airmen. What happened off the coast of Japan on November the 29th, 2023, was not bad luck. It was not a freak accident. It was the inevitable result of a secret the military had been keeping for nearly 20 years. This is the story of the V-22 Osprey. And this is the story of what the Pentagon and Boeing knew, and chose not to tell the men who flew it. The V-22 Osprey is unlike any aircraft ever built for military service. Its rotors tilt forward for fast fixed-wing flight, like a propeller aircraft. Then they tilt straight up for vertical takeoff and landing, like a helicopter. The military calls this a tiltrotor. Engineers spent decades solving the physics to make it work. The result was extraordinary. An aircraft that could deploy special operations forces deep into enemy territory, faster and farther than any helicopter in American history. The Marine Corps wanted it badly. The Air Force wanted it. The Navy wanted it. And Boeing wanted the contract. But underneath the revolutionary design was a fatal flaw. A flaw buried in the metal itself. A flaw that had been identified, documented, analyzed, and then quietly set aside while men climbed into the cockpit and flew. By November 2023, 62 Americans had already died in V-22 crashes. The Pentagon knew. Boeing knew. And 8 more men were about to pay the price for that knowledge. The V-22 program began in 1983. Bell Helicopter and Boeing Helicopters were awarded the contract to build an aircraft that could replace both helicopters and fixed-wing transports in one machine. The first prototype flew in 1989. From the beginning, it was troubled. For crashes during developmental flight testing killed 30 people before the aircraft ever entered operational service. Congress nearly canceled the program multiple times. Critics publicly called it a death trap. The Marine Corps kept fighting for it. In 2007, after billions spent and decades delayed, the V-22 was declared combat ready. At the heart of the Osprey is a component called the propeller gearbox. This is the mechanical brain of the tiltrotor system, the device that transfers engine power into rotor thrust and manages the transition between helicopter and airplane mode. It is extraordinarily complex and extraordinarily vulnerable. In 2006, engineers inside the V-22 program identified a specific risk in the propeller gearbox, classified internally as a serious risk. Under Department of Defense regulations, serious risks require formal, written approval from the military users before they can be accepted and left unresolved. That approval was never sought. The risk was never officially processed. It simply sat there, in documents, inside the Joint Program Office, while pilots flew. In the decade between 2014 and 2023, there were 10 separate in-flight component failures in V-22 aircraft attributed to the same material defect that would eventually destroy Gundam 22. 10 failures. Not reported to flight crews. Not communicated to the services operating the aircraft. Buried in maintenance logs no pilot ever saw. The manufacturer knew. The program office knew. The pilots did not. November the 29th, 2023. Clear weather. Light winds. An Air Force CV-22 Osprey, cosine Gundam 22, assigned to the 21st Special Operations Squadron at Yokota Air Base, Japan, was on a routine transit flight from Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni to Kadena Air Base on Okinawa. At some point during the flight, the crew received a warning: metallic chips detected in the gearbox oil. In aviation, this is a critical alert. Metal debris in the lubrication system means something inside the gearbox is physically breaking apart. The crew began looking for a place to land. They flew past several potential emergency landing locations. This decision, flying past possible landing zones, would later be highlighted in the official investigation. But what the investigation would ultimately reveal was that the crew did not know how fast the gearbox could catastrophically fail, because no one had told them. Witnesses on Yakushima Island watched as the Osprey approached flying inverted. Flames were consuming the left engine nacelle. Then came the explosion. Gundam 22 hit the water. 8 American airmen were dead. Major Jeffrey T. Hornman, Major Eric V. Spendlove, Major Luca Unruh, Captain Terrell K. Brayman, Tech Sergeant Zachary E. Lavoie, Staff Sergeant Jake M. Turnage, Senior Airman Brian K. Johnson, Staff Sergeant Jake Gallagher. 8 men with families. 8 men who trusted the aircraft. 8 men who were never told what was wrong with it. Japan grounded its entire Osprey fleet the next day. The U.S. Air Force followed 1 week later. Then the Navy. Then the Marines. For the first time in history, America's entire V-22 fleet sat grounded on the ground simultaneously. When the Air Force released its official accident investigation report in August 2024, the findings were damning. The crash was caused by catastrophic failure of the left propeller gearbox. A pinion gear inside the gearbox had cracked, most likely due to what engineers call an inclusion. An inclusion is a foreign substance inside raw metal, a microscopic contamination introduced during the manufacturing process that creates a structural weak point invisible to standard inspection. The steel in the gear that killed 8 men was defective from the moment it left the factory. This was not new information. The company that supplied the steel, Universal Stainless, had been sued in 2001, 2 decades earlier, for allegedly producing defective steel for aircraft parts. The lawsuit was settled. The company kept supplying parts. The V-22 program kept using them. The investigation report stated plainly, safety assessments and their findings were given insufficient treatment at the program level. Known hazards were not communicated to the military services. Opportunities to impose risk mitigation were lost. In plain English, the people who built and managed this aircraft knew the metal could fail catastrophically in flight. They knew pilots were flying without that information, and they chose to keep flying. The report also documented what investigators called the cumulative risk posture of the V-22, stating that known risks had been growing since the aircraft first entered service, without being mitigated in a timely manner. Growing risks? Documented. Unaddressed. While men flew combat missions. In December 2023, the House Committee on Government Oversight launched a formal investigation into the V-22 program. In June 2024, they held a public congressional hearing. The committee requested every safety investigation report dating back to 1991. The Pentagon's response was telling. According to the committee, they encountered what they called significant delays and hurdles obtaining the necessary materials. As of September 2025, it remained unclear whether the Department of Defense had fully complied with the congressional request. The military placed a flight hour limit on the Osprey's clutch assembly, a component that wears out after approximately 800 flight hours and becomes progressively more prone to failure. A redesigned clutch was promised. Full fixes for the fundamental gearbox design problems are not expected to be fielded until 2034. 2034. 11 years from now. In the meantime, American Special Operations Forces continue flying V-22 Ospreys in restricted configurations with limited flight envelopes, required to stay within 30 minutes of a landing zone at all times, in case the gearbox fails again. By July 2025, 65 military personnel and civilians had died in V-22 mishaps since the program began. 65 lives. Across more than 3 decades. In a program that cost the American taxpayer over $50 billion. The fiscal year 2023 and 2024 data showed serious accident rates between 36 and 88% higher than the average of the previous 8 years. Higher, not lower. There is a pattern in disasters like these. The engineers know. The program managers know. The legal teams know. And the person most exposed to the risk, the one in the cockpit when the gearbox fails, the one whose hands are on the controls at 30,000 feet, they are the last to find out. In November 2023, 8 men made decisions based on information they were never given. They flew past possible landing zones because they did not know how fast the gearbox could fail completely. Because no one told them. Because someone, somewhere, at some level of the program, decided that the risk of telling pilots the truth was less important than keeping the aircraft in the air. That is not a malfunction. That is a decision. The V-22 Osprey will keep flying. The military needs it. The contracts are signed. The fixes are 11 years away. And somewhere tonight, another special operations crew is strapping into one of these aircraft, trusting the machine, trusting the program, trusting the people who built it. The question is, should they? If you believe American service members deserve the full truth about the machines they fly, share this video. And if you're new here, subscribe. Because this is what we do. We find the stories the institutions don't want told. =1000